the NCAA and all the member conferences, all of them have these panel of medical experts. And on member institutions' campuses, there are the best infectious disease experts and epidemiologists, virologists, you name it, in the world. And they're giving advice to the conferences, and they're giving advice to the NCAA office in Indianapolis and Mark Emmert and his board of governors. What are they saying? We need to know that. That is a public trust. All these institutions in the NCAA beat us over the head all the time with the education stick, that we're about education. Well, they need to educate the public on this pandemic, and they need to educate the public on their findings and what they are, the judgments they're making, the medical judgments, and what they're telling the respective conferences and what they're telling the NCAA. And Mark Emmert has said repeatedly that the NCAA doesn't have authority over football and authority over the decisions of the conferences as to whether to play. They just have authority over the championships. That doesn't mean that they don't have influence. And if the NCAA is being told by their infectious disease experts that it is irresponsible to play during this pandemic, they need to tell us that. And not just us, but they need to tell the players that. And the players, the staff, coaches, they need to know these things too. And there may be reasonable disagreement among medical professionals based upon geography or how the pandemic is affecting certain areas of the country. Myocarditis, there are some that may think that it can be managed, others that think it's irresponsible to play with this as an issue for elite athletes. But we have to have that discussion, and that has been a profound failure of leadership on behalf of the conferences and on behalf of the office in Indianapolis, the NCAA office.
Heather, help us there, because this is something I've been trying to figure out all week and far longer than that. Is it feels as though there is a lack of willingness to share whatever medical information it is they're using to make their decisions. The Pac-12 comes out and says what they say. The Big Ten comes out and does what they do. And we're consulting our medical advisors. But that's not private information. There are no secrets there. There are no HIPAA violations if they say this is what our medical advisors are telling us. Why is it we, as the public and the media, don't know that?
Well, there could certainly be more transparency, but I would say that those doctors are certainly sharing everything that they have, obviously, with the presidents and the athletic directors. I do want to share with you, I spoke with a Power 5 athletic director yesterday who is in one of those conferences who is continuing to push forward. And this is what he told me. He said, doctors don't agree. They don't. The mainstream of public opinion thinks there's only one answer, but there's multiple answers to the same question. What we're doing may be exactly wrong. It may be right. He said, but we feel that we're comfortable moving along with the information that we have right now. I spoke with one of the doctors who is advising the Big 12, Dr. Chris Hostler, yesterday, and he told me, I said, why is it safe for the Big 12 to play, but nobody else? And he said that this is such a location variance issue. It is not one single pandemic. It is impacting different regions differently. And so doctors have different information. So that's basically what I've been told, is that people are getting this information and interpreting it differently, and it also is varying from place to place.
Boy, I hated that quote. We may be getting this entirely wrong. You're talking about the health and potentially, in some cases, maybe the lives of 18 to 22-year-old people. Paul, are we okay with that?
I'm not okay with that. I think it's a sham to hear comments like that, Greenie. And by the way, in reference to the NCAA, I don't really agree with him any more than Jay does, but I don't think there's much to interpret from Del Rio's comments. He clearly said it's not safe to play, otherwise he would not have used the Titanic reference. I mean, that is crystal clear. I think these conferences are not being transparent. The three remaining have not shared very much. It's interesting, Greenie, that the conferences may provide an ID doctor to the three of us or the four of us, but I would like to see all of them show up and have a transparent news conference and look us all in the eye and say, it's okay to play football. All I've heard from commissioners, and I've spoken to every one of them, Mike, is it's okay to proceed. It's safer on campus. The question isn't whether the college football players are safer on campus. Of course they are. They have medical training, the best in the world, allegedly. But what about playing football? That's what this is about. This is not about training. This is about having a 10-game season or an 11-game season in the ACC. And I've yet to hear one commissioner tell anyone that it's safe to play college football this fall.
Yeah, and if they don't want to get into a place where they play, that's fine too. But I think, Jay, what we need to hear from someone in a position of authority is we are completely confident that what we are doing is safe for the athlete, the student athletes who are taking part in it. Because anything short of that, it seems to me, Jay, should render this a non-issue. That we shouldn't even be talking about doing it, right?
Well, that's a different issue than what I'm talking about. I mean, with all due respect to the people involved here, I'm not particularly interested in what a coach has to say about safety or what a commissioner has to say about safety. I'm interested in what the infectious disease experts on these medical panels that they keep touting that they're getting advice from. And Heather's point is a good one. There can be reasonable medical disagreement about some of the effects of like myocarditis. Can we go forward? Geographical differences. But we need to know what those are in order to make informed judgments. And the NCAA and the member institutions, the conferences, they can have briefings on this where they have their medical panel there to answer questions and to educate the public, most especially their athletes, coaches, and the like, so that we're not just making declarative statements that we are comfortable that move based on what we've been told in moving forward. That's simply not good enough. And when you do have Dr. Del Rio step out and say, we're on the Titanic and we're arguing over what time the band plays, we know how that one came out. And that's a pretty big statement. And Dr. Del Rio is on that panel. We need to hear more of that and the data behind it. And listen, Mark Emmert, all due respect to the Office of the Presidency, but we hear a lot of declarative statements about, he talked about authoritarian government yesterday when the czar was brought up, as if some of us are asking for Peter the Great to be in charge of football, and which is an absurd statement on his part. But he can't step up and say, our medical advisors are advising against football. I cannot tell from this office the conference is not to play, but I can say it's a bad idea and have influence over it.